No, really, this is a Superdash guide. Don't look at me like that. I swear, there's actually useful information here. Promise. I want to teach people enough about how to deal with Superdash that they can really limit its effectiveness when used by their opponents, and I want to show some examples of when Superdash is a useful, deliberate choice that can counter your opponent's choices. Before I show you some ways to deal with Superdash, let's look at why it's a threat in the first place. Superdash plus assist. If you watched Kazunoko at all last year, you know how strong this can be. You get your turn, when they block the Superdash, you get a combo if they get hit, and then you run your game plan from there. Not all assists are equally good for this tactic, but most work in some way or another. Is this really so strong though? And what do you do to deal with it? Well, obviously 2H if you're able to, but the opponent has some ways to either take that option away from you or make it much more difficult. If they wait until they're relatively close to you, they can Superdash with less fear of being 2H'd. This makes sense, right? The further it has to travel, the longer you have to react. But the opposite is also true. If they're close to you, you have that much less time to react appropriately. And since 2H has startup, things can go downhill for you fast if you're too late. What are some answers to this close-range Superdash? Well, the first and the lowest risk option is to simply just reflect. Reflect has 1 frame startup, so you either do it in time and push them away, or you do it too late, but you're safe because you'll at least still be blocking. The second, more rewarding option is to create more space, which will add travel time to the Superdash and make reacting that much easier. Backdashing surprisingly recovers in time to 2H in most, but not all cases. I want to stress that the backdash is not a reaction to the Superdash, but something that's done preemptively when you recognize that you're in a close spacing in neutral where Superdash won't be easily reactable. The other way to create more space is by running under the opponent when they're above you. Even after passing them, you can continue moving forward, and you'll essentially have all the time in the world to react with a 2H. Another way your opponent can prevent you from successfully 2Hing their Superdash is by covering the ground with an assist. Many assists are slow enough in neutral that you can react by jumping over them or reflecting. Reflecting might be bad since you might still be stuck blocking once it's over, although sometimes it can pay off. Results may vary. But jumping over these assists is a pretty solid choice. Now that you're in the air, Superdash seems to be unstoppable. But in reality, nearly every character has a way to react versus it. Let's start with the privileged characters first. Anyone who has an air invincible special can simply just react with that. Vegeta's the obvious example, but Cooler and Beerus are worth mentioning too. Characters like Yamcha with EX moves that are air invincible are also useful. The list goes on. Next, if a character has an air level 3, those will always be a consistent answer that leads to a good knockdown. Just be careful when you're trying to do something like Spirit Bomb that requires a specific angle or that might move your character's positioning. Those can be hit or miss, but regular level 3s in the air are pretty much always a safe bet. And finally, if you don't have any of these tools, most characters can reaction jab the Superdash. I mentioned this last because it's the most difficult to learn, but in most cases, it actually has the most reward. It's a meterless response with a solid combo that also builds meter and allows you to dump supers with your whole team. You'll need to experiment with your characters in training mode to see which ones have this option. Many people think this is like a Piccolo exclusive option, since he has the easiest time doing it, but in reality, most characters can do it as well. You just need to practice. I believe in you. Now that you've got your airborne answers to Superdash handy, let's look at a common situation where it's very practical. Oftentimes, people will use one assist to cover the ground so that they can prevent you from 2Hing when they try to hard tag in a healthy character. If you think that your opponent will do this, be ready to super jump over the assist and then react to the incoming character. Denying your opponent the chance to save their point character is so huge, and it's even better now that you've taken both assists out of the game for a period of time. There are some situations where Superdash is absolutely the correct response to a situation. It will always carry risks, but in some situations, you simply aren't playing correctly if you don't show that you're willing to do it at least some of the time. If you ever catch the opponent using their double jump, then you know exactly where they're going to land. With this in mind, every character has some way to get their turn started or at least harass their opponent. Have them land on your 2H and use an assist to B+, use a key blast or projectile to check them from afar. And some characters can space a normal with really high reward. In pretty much every case, the airborne player can use Superdash to answer these options. I think many players do this intuitively already. If you're the person on the ground and recognize how the situation can play out, then you should know that you need to mix up whether you approach or not. Sometimes, take your turn with confidence, and sometimes, look like you want to approach, but actually wait and scout out a Superdash instead. Remember that there's virtually no risk to doing the latter, and most of the potential risk is on the airborne player. This situation alone is one of the bigger reasons why many strong players consider Kid Buu to have one of the best neutral games in DBFZ. He can challenge a falling opponent with 2M, getting a full combo on hit, and beginning pressure on block without any assist or meter. He also has solid 2H damage, especially if he uses meter, so the risk for the opponent if they choose to super dash can be quite high. Here's one of the main points I want to make, and I want you all to take away from this video. If you can recognize situations like this where super dash is a clear answer to something you're doing, then you need to mix up between what you're doing and the choice to wait for super dash. And if you can make a conscious choice to look in these moments, then answering the super dash or hard tag will be much easier, even if you go for one of the tougher options. I really hope this helped you in one way or another, either making you more conscious of how you use Superdash or how you try to deal with it. I would want to say that in probably like 97% of situations, 97% of the time, Superdash reacts and acts exactly as you expect it to. The other 3%, well, you just gotta learn to laugh at it. Thanks for watching. Alright, this seems like a pretty good stopping point to me. There's more to cover regarding Superdash, like how to use it for mix-up and what to do in various situations when it gets blocked. But that's a bit too much for me to cover right now. We'll come back to this topic of Superdash a bit in another video at some point. I want to thank you all for all the great feedback I got on the GT Goku and Janemba guides. The next character guide is already on the way, but I'm going at a slightly slower pace now that my engineering classes started back up again, and I'm still working near full-time at my job, so just please be patient. There is a lot more to come though, with some of these shorter topics sprinkled between the larger projects. So just let me know what you guys think. Really quickly, I want to mention that with the character guides that are on the way, I've been getting some pretty good help. This isn't necessarily to help me save time or cut corners, but it's more to make sure that I have the most detailed video possible where we don't miss any information and they're as helpful to you as possible. I really just care about that. We also have some other things that might happen down the road that will hopefully make learning these characters easier and a little bit less intimidating. So I don't want to give anything away now, so I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are. Thank you for all the help. We've got more good stuff on the way. Thanks for watching. Let's start with the privileged characters first. Anyone who has an air invincible special...